Fallout 4 gives you a lot of things: intense combat, eerie post-apocalyptic locations, and even some romance. Maybe not with the same depth as we've come to expect from other RPGs, but it's still there. Today, I'll be ranking the romance options from worst to best using my romance ranking criteria. Some of these romances are sweet, some are dramatic, and a few are honestly just uncomfortable in ways that the game definitely didn't intend. A few quick ground rules before we dive in. I will be focusing on the 8 companions that require actual time and emotional investment, but I'm gonna touch on the 2 one-time encounters first. And please consider this your spoiler warning. I'll be ranking each romance with 3 criteria, worth up to 5 points each for a total of 15 points possible. First is character depth. Does the character feel like a real person with flaws, motivations, and a personality? Emotional depth. Does the romance actually feel meaningful and deep, or is it purely surface level? And finally, relationship pacing. Does the relationship develop naturally, or does it feel forced? With all that out of the way, let's get into it and talk about our 2 one-time encounters. Up first is Gilda Brosco. Gilda Brosco lives in Vault 118 in the Far Harbor DLC. She's a former Hollywood actress who, like the other Vault residents, is now implanted in a robo-brain. In the kindest way possible, you're basically flirting with a trash can that has a human voice. She shares scandalous old Hollywood stories, and if you pass a few speech checks, you get the Lover's Embrace perk. It's strange, it's funny, and it's a one-time thing. Next is Magnolia. Magnolia sings at the third rail in Good Neighbor. She's alluring, she's distant, and makes it very clear that her first love is the stage. Definitely not you. If you pass a series of speech checks, you get one night together and the Lover's Embrace perk, and then she's done with you. It's kind of cold, but honestly, respect. She knows what she's committed to. Neither of these interactions are going to get a score. They're very limited in their investment and development. So with those out of the way, let's get into the main romances. Starting at the bottom, the worst score. I kind of doubt that this will surprise anyone. It's Preston Garvey. He's a dedicated member of the Minutemen who is committed to protecting others, and he carries the weight of every person that he hasn't been able to save. His story should be compelling. He's a man who's haunted by guilt and driven by a genuine desire to help. It's a very solid foundation for a character arc. It just really doesn't deliver. For character depth, I gave Preston a 2 out of 5. Preston goes hard for the Minutemen all day, every single day. You've seen the memes. That dedication comes from loss and compassion, but there just isn't much to work with. No growth, no layers, and not really any complexity. And his line delivery, even during emotional moments, is wooden in a way that completely undermines any emotional weight that the scene should be carrying.
All my closest friends were dead. Everything I believed in had turned out to be a lie. I failed everyone who ever relied on me.
For emotional depth, I gave this romance a 2 out of 5. Preston does acknowledge the loss of your spouse, which certainly shows some insight. But the real problem in all seriousness is that his constant quest giving makes players avoid him. And if you dread talking to a character because you know they're about to send you to help another settlement, that's seriously going to hurt their appeal as a romance option. For the pacing of this relationship, I gave it a 1 out of 5. Preston's romantic confession is one of the most forgettable in the entire game. It's straightforward, it's emotionless, and genuinely feels like it's just sandwiched between 2 requests to help settlements. Overall, I gave this romance a 5 out of 15. The gap between Preston and our next character, Curie, is actually only 1 point. You can find Curie in Vault 81. She is a modified version of a Miss Nanny robot. Curie is driven, curious, and deeply committed to scientific research.
I have analyzed and learned everything there is to know here. So now I must see the rest of the Commonwealth.
She's charming in her robot form and on a journey of self-discovery that leads to her consciousness being transferred to a synth body. And honestly, that's where everything with this romance gets uncomfortable. For character depth, I gave Curie a 3 out of 5. Curie's curiosity and drive make her an interesting companion to travel with. Her passion for learning is always really clear in what she does. But as I said, the whole synth transformation situation, it really complicates things. It's honestly kind of like slamming the brakes on a character that otherwise felt like they were developing in an interesting way and fun to get to know. For the emotional depth of this romance, I gave it a 1 out of 5. This is really the big problem area for this romance. Curie has just had her consciousness transferred to this new body. body. She's understandably overwhelmed and confused. She's experiencing stuff like physical sensations for the first time ever, and she has a ton to learn. And for whatever reason, you can quickly try to initiate a romantic relationship with her. Knowing the state that she's in, it just doesn't feel romantic. It feels more like you're taking advantage of someone who's in a vulnerable state. For the pacing of this relationship, I gave it a 2 out of 5. This romance is totally thrown off by how rushed things can be post-transformation. The power imbalance here is genuinely unsettling to me. Curie really has no framework for what a romantic relationship should be like, and you're the only person who's guiding her. Major red flags. Overall, I gave this romance a 6 out of 15. Moving on, from one of the most uncomfortable romances in the game to one that should have been one of the most memorable, and somehow isn't, let's talk about Hancock. Hancock is the charismatic and committed ghoul mayor of Goodneighbor. He's witty, charming, and genuinely entertaining to travel with. He's one of the most unique companions in the game, and that makes it so much more disappointing that this wasn't better. For character depth, I gave Hancock a 3 out of 5. Hancock is navigating his own sense of purpose, and he sees traveling with you as a way to expand his perspective. It's definitely an interesting angle for a romance, and it's certainly refreshing to have a companion who's excited to travel the world with you. For emotional depth, I gave this relationship a 2 out of 5. Hancock can go round for round with even the most sarcastic survivor.
But like any hot and heavy relationship, sometimes you gotta spend time apart. Let things cool off. Remind yourself of who you are. That's why I'm leaving.
And he feels like a solid match for players who share his worldview. But unfortunately, there's not much more to it than that. The charm and intrigue are pretty much completely just surface level. For the pacing of this relationship, I gave it a 2 out of 5. This is the genuinely frustrating part. Hancock is caring, funny, he's one of the most unique companions in the game, and his romance is so shallow. It's shallow even by Fallout 4 standards, and trust me, that's saying something. All this personality and potential, and the romance gives you almost nothing remarkable in return. Overall, I gave this romance a 7 out of 15. On the subject of shallow, our next romance, also a 7 out of 15, struggles with similar issues. Porter Gage is a career raider who you meet in Nuka World. Unlike what you might expect, though, he's not into mindless violence, he's strategic and calculating, and he prefers long-term planning over just random bad acts. After years of betrayal, he understands the importance of loyalty, so he can be a solid person to have at your side. For character depth, I gave Gage a 3 out of 5. Gage feels like he's built for an evil playthrough. He won't judge you for your morally questionable choices, and he does have an interesting history. He's experienced betrayal, hardship, and he has a world view that's shaped by his struggle to survive.
I know you got my back. I can trust you. I can't say that about anybody else.
But he doesn't have a dedicated personal quest, which really cuts down on his development and the overall depth of this relationship. For the emotional depth of this romance, I gave it a 2 out of 5. If you're interested in sweet, sentimental moments, Gage is absolutely not your guy. His romance is built on cynicism, mutual respect, and a shared interest in raiding. That's really about it. For the pacing of this relationship, I gave it a 2 out of 5. This romance is shallow, just like Hancock's. It hints at something deeper, but there's never anything more to it than that. If you want a partnership that's built on survival and a plan to take over the Commonwealth, this works. But if you want anything deeper, you will not find it here. Overall, I gave this romance a 7 out of 15. Now we're moving into our mid-tier romances. This is where they stop being actively uncomfortable or just straight up disappointing and start being just fine. We're starting with Piper Wright. Piper is Diamond City's outspoken investigative journalist. She's driven, vocal, and more than willing to put herself at odds with the city's leadership to expose the truth. She's smart, charming, and she's always an advocate for the common people. For character depth, I gave Piper a 3 out of 5. Below her humor, there's definitely some depth. With time, she opens up about what drove her to be so dedicated to her work and her love and protectiveness for her sister. She nicknames you Blue, she'll randomly give you snacks, she'll check in. They're all small things, but they do help build the relationship between the two of you. For emotional depth, I gave this relationship a 3 out of 5. The small gestures that I just mentioned all signal a relationship that's getting deeper with time. They're definitely subtle, but they do work. For the pacing of this relationship, I gave it a 2 out of 5. Here's the problem. Piper really likes actions that are super common in this game. Picking locks, helping settlers.
Show me you want to make lives better out here. Then we'll talk.
So her affinity builds very fast. You can have these deep conversations with her really early on, and once you do, the unique interactions end. You could have dozens of hours left in the main game and 0 new developments in your romance. To get her affinity perk, this is great, but for the romance, it definitely leaves a lot to be desired. Overall, I gave this romance an 8 out of 15. Moving from a romance that ends too quickly to one that throws an identity crisis at you right before the romantic confession, next we're talking about Paladin Danse. When you meet him, Paladin Danse is a loyal, mission-focused member of the Brotherhood of Steel. He's all about duty, honor, and the Brotherhood of Steel doctrine, which includes their prejudice against synths and ghouls. That is, until the game drops a revelation on him that changes everything he knows about himself. For character depth, I gave Danse a 3 out of 5. Dance's character arc is defined by how much he's forced to change. What he learns about his identity is devastating.
I didn't know. Until Quinlan got that list decoded. I thought synths were the enemy. I never expected to hear that I was one of them.
And if you're a player who shared his prejudices, his personal quest could genuinely make you reflect on your own actions. That's powerful for sure. For emotional depth, I gave this romance a 3 out of 5. The quest Blind Betrayal is the emotional core of this character and the overall relationship. Everything Danse knew about his life is completely turned upside down. The faction that he dedicated his life to has betrayed him, and he needs comfort and reassurance. Coming from a character who initially was so self-sufficient and rigid, this vulnerability does hit really hard. But we're going to transition into relationship pacing to finish this thought, because it's actually part of the problem. For relationship pacing, I gave this a 2 out of 5, and here's where it's a problem. The pacing is completely whiplash inducing. Danse is having this identity crisis. It's really one of the most intense personal moments that a companion experiences in the game, and it can come right before the romantic confession moment. It feels like you're being pulled in one direction and then you're immediately being pulled back in the other. This is not romantic tension. It's, again, just straight up emotional whiplash, and it does not benefit this relationship in any way. Overall, I gave this romance an 8 out of 15. And now we reach our top 2. Both are tied at 11 out of 15. These are really the only relationships in the game that, in my opinion, and based on my very scientific criteria, feel like they have layers and depth to them. First is Maccready. Maccready is a gun for hire who you can recruit from the third rail. He's sarcastic and he's very cynical. He uses that cynicism to hide another side of his character. It's a side of him that is racked with grief, guilt, and has a history that goes back to a previous Fallout game. For character depth, I gave Maccready a 4 out of 5. Maccready is one of the deepest companions in Fallout 4. His personal quest dives into his family, his past, and the traumas that have defined who he is. He starts off guarded and aloof, but the more time you spend with him, the more you realize that there's a genuinely complicated person underneath everything else. For emotional depth, I gave this romance a 4 out of 5. What sets Maccready apart from the other romance options is that he's also grieving the loss of his spouse.
I left my family behind. I had a beautiful wife named Lucy and a son we named Duncan.
That shared trauma adds weight to the connection between him and the survivor, and it's something that most other romances in this game definitely don't have. They understand each other in a way that feels earned and developed over time. It doesn't feel forced or manufactured. For the pacing of this relationship, I gave it a 3 out of 5. So there's a flip side to their emotional connection, because you also have to wonder if either of them is completely in a good place for a relationship, considering the grief and trauma that they're both processing. And Maccready has lines about being happy for the first time in his life because he's with you, which kind of undermines the emphasis that the game placed on his love for his family. It's complicated and it's a little bit messy. Overall, I gave this romance an 11 out of 15. And finally, the romance that honestly surprised me the most, Cait. When you meet Cait at the combat zone, she's tough and she's addicted to chems, and she spent her whole life learning what it takes to survive. She has solid walls up, and earning her trust takes time and effort. For character depth, I gave Cait a 4 out of 5. Cait's life has been defined by danger and victimization. She's traumatized in ways that are really intense, and the game doesn't shy away from that. And when she finally asks you for help and lets herself be vulnerable, you can tell how hard it is for her and how much it means that you're willing to be there for her.
We're friends now.
which means I can trust you with anything. I'm also hoping it means you've got me back, because I need it now more than ever. I'm sick, and I don't think I can hide it from you anymore.
For the emotional depth of this relationship, I gave it a 4 out of 5. This is the only romance in Fallout 4 where the emotional dynamic of the romance dramatically changes over the course of the game. It gets more vulnerable, more supportive, and genuinely more caring. Despite the limited interactions that all of these romances suffer from, Cait's relationship does succeed at making you feel like she and the survivor are developing an understanding for each other. For the pacing of this relationship, I gave it a 3 out of 5. Cait's personal quest gives the romance more room to breathe than most other romances in this game, and the pacing feels more natural as a result. Post-romance content is still very limited. Outside of the check-in dialogue and the lover's embrace perk, there's really not much, which is disappointing given that the build-up for this romance is actually pretty solid. Overall, I gave this romance an 11 out of 15. A grieving mercenary and a fighter who is struggling with a chem addiction are the best romances in this game. And honestly, that perfectly fits with the vibe of this post-apocalyptic Commonwealth. But what do you think? Did I get this ranking right? And more importantly, when you're playing this game, who do you romance, if you romance anyone at all? Let me know in the comments. If you like more content like this, please like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.